Hey, hi, how are you? Going to do something a little different today. Like a lot of times, I will talk about employers and how, well, through their negligence, mishappenstance, uncertainty, ignorance, whatever the case may be, but whatever it is, they put workers at risk. But now I'm going on a different tact. What about when the government, through their own actions, for their own, I don't know, political reasoning, is putting workers at risk? There's the question. I don't know if this is going to turn into a playlist or not. Let me know in the comments. If you send me examples, then I'll dig into it and look into it, and maybe it will become a playlist. But with no further ado, let's talk about this recent article and talk about how the government of British Columbia and their failed experiment, shall we say, and other words of other authors, not just me, in drug enablement and drug use enablement is putting workers at risk. So let's have a look. And so here's the headline from the Vancouver Sun. And basically where we are is, this is a nurse has said that years of nursing, she's never seen illicit drug use as bad. And there's been several complaints that have been brought forward to WorkSafe BC, the Occupational Health and Safety Authority in British Columbia. And I've highlighted a few spots, but WorkSafe BC has inspected several island health hospitals. And for those of you that don't know, we'll just talk about this for a second. The health authorities are split up in different regions across British Columbia, like you have the Island Health, Vancouver Health, and Northern Health, etc., Interior Health. And while they function under the mandate of the government, they're still split up and work as their own entities. Anyway, WorkSafe BC has inspected several island health hospitals following complaints of nurses and healthcare staff exposed to illicit drug smoke. So now, the inspection at Campbell River General Hospital, Victoria General Hospital, Royal Jubilee in Victoria, and several community health centers or health sites were in response to several symptomatic worker exposures in illicit substances in interior health sites, according to a WorkSafe report dated June 15th, 2023. So let's just stop and talk about this. Let's unpack that for a sec. Some years back, WorkSafe BC went on a rampage, shall we say. And hey, I'm a reformed smoker, so I'm the worst kind of ex-smoker, or worst kind of person speaking out against cigarette smoke. I hate it with a passion. I hate it smelling it in anywhere. However, they took a really strong stance on enforcement with this, and to the point people were losing their jobs, and there was fines and levies and orders written and all of that other thing with tobacco smoke. So now we're digging into smoke from methamphetamine and fentanyl and all of that other whatnot. So let's just put that in perspective. So anyway, let's carry on. Now, the BC Nurses Union President, Adrian Gear, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Gear, said, the inspections illustrate how challenging it is to keep nurses safe on the job when they're constantly at risk of being exposed to illicit drug smoke. So once again, let's stop and talk about this. Every worker in Canada has the right to a safe working environment, and it's up to the employer to ensure that all hazards are either eliminated, substituted, or controlled reasonably to the point that work can carry on safely. And so let's get back to the article here. The issue came to the forefront this week following the release of a leaked Northern Health memo, which is where I used to be from, that advised nurses not to confiscate drugs or small knives from patients. Okay, full stop, once again. So now we have nurses that are looking after patients that are holding drugs and holding weapons. Safe environment? I don't know. Yay. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Now, the MLA for BC United, which released the memo saying rampant drug use in hospitals is linked to the BC NDP government's failed experiment with drug decriminalization. And realistically, honestly, tell me where in the realm of sanity that allowing addicts to just shoot up, smoke, imbibe without any repercussions, where is that going to help anywhere? And it's a failed experiment. And in fact, I have family in British Columbia, and their words, not mine, the NDP is turning the province into a socialist crap hole. Anyway, like I said, their words, not mine. Alain Sturko, the opposition's addiction critic, accused the government of refusing to prioritize safety of nurses and patients over the use of crystal meth, cocaine, and fentanyl in hospitals. Now, the health minister, Adrian Dix, spent Thursday, earlier last week, doing damage control, insisting that open drug use is not permitted in BC hospitals, but at the same time acknowledging that people break the rules. And that, herein lies the problem, is the junkies they're smoking in the bathrooms or in a dark corner or wherever they can find in hospitals. And that poses a problem, especially when they're trying to get in and shelter and they're smoking up. This is an issue, okay? So once again, workers have that right to a safe environment. And by saying this, the minister is almost acknowledging that, there's what's a little meth? I mean, it's a problem. And of course, just as elsewhere, not everybody follows the rules, Dick said. And that presents real difficulties for healthcare workers and for staff. So hold on, once again, you're recognizing it's an issue, but you're still allowing that pervasive behavior and you're still permitting it? Just, isn't that like, I don't know, what do we call that? Being complicit? I don't know. Just me. Now, hospital staff practice harm reduction, Dick said. If someone with addiction wants to use drugs, they should be directed either to an adjacent overdose prevention site or an outside smoking area. Now, just for my viewers who have never seen it before, you can go ahead and YouTube it. Don't wait to the end of the video and do a search. And there's lots of videos on those overdose prevention sites and what they look like and what they're about. Or an outside smoking area. So now what we're doing is we're putting patients who just want to go out or hospital visitors who just want to go out and have a cigarette, once again, shouldn't be smoking, but you're putting them at risk. Once again, not thinking, and it is a failed experiment. However, the WorkSafe BC report found that because Island Health rolled out the harm reduction policy without a detailed plan on how to mitigate staff exposure to illicit drugs, it has created considerable friction between harm reduction focused staff and acute care staff. Once again, without a detailed plan on how to mitigate staff exposure to illicit drugs. It's up to the employer to ensure that there's a hazard control plan for any hazard. It doesn't matter if it's a chemical that you're using in the course of your work. It doesn't matter if it is a ladder. It doesn't matter if it's a tool you're using. The employer's got to ensure that there's a safe work procedure in place. So obviously that's an issue. Okay, let's get back to it. The WorkSafe BC report noted the use of illicit drugs is already not permitted in the acute care settings of Island Health, but enforcing this rule has been marginally effective. The WorkSafe BC inspections at Island Health hospitals began March 2023 and continued till May 2023 and included interviews with healthcare staff and union representatives. The inspecting officer determined the employers not meeting their obligations around training and education. Okay, let's just stop there for a second. Once again, training and education are an administrative control. So in not meeting their obligation around training and education, they're failing to control hazards for the employees to work there. But once again, those hazards have been put in there by the lunacy and idiocy of the BC government and their virtue signaling and, pandering to whatever. So let's start again here, or let's go back to it. The inspecting officer determined the employers not meeting their obligation around training and reduction or education. Regarding risk exposure to illicit substances. For example, staff interviewed did not know how to carry out a risk assessment of what to do if a patient has been smoking illicit substances in a small space such as a bathroom, the report said. Now, full stop here. Let's talk about this for a second. Nurses and healthcare aides and most care staff are trained in doing what's called a point of care risk assessment. But that's looking after patients under normal health care environments, not when people are smoking up and smoking illicit drugs in the bathroom or overdosing in the bathroom. And that's the truth. A lot of times addicts will go there because they know they might overdose and they figure they're going to be in a place where they get help. But they need more than being permitted to use drugs. They need help with their addiction. So let's get back into it. Island Health was ordered to improve training, which WorkSafe BC said can be phased in, prioritizing high exposure risk areas first and the employees who are at the most risk of exposure. Obviously, when you're doing a hazard assessment, and there's a link in the description, and I've got live stream happening Thursdays at 6:30 Mountain Daylight Time, 6:30 Calgary time, regarding hazard assessments. So if you want to learn more about them, go ahead, dig in. There'll be a link to the playlist in the top here. But the idea is you prioritize your highest risk tasks and duties first and the highest risk personnel first and look after them first and work your way down. No one from Island Health was available for an interview Thursday, but a spokesman said in a statement that all issues that have been identified in the WorkSafe BC report have been addressed. What else are they going to say? The Island Health Authority acknowledged that despite policies that prohibit smoking of any substance in hospitals, there have been instances where staff in the hospitals, including North Island Hospital, Campbell River, have been exposed to smoke from a substance. Island Health has rolled out training on how to mitigate exposure to unregulated substances, which is mandatory for all hires, and has been completed by 5,300 employees. The Health Authority provides personal protective equipment to staff and trains them on their use to reduce exposure to unregulated drug smoke. Okay, full stop. Let's just address this one for a second. Now, PPE is the last line of defense. It's the lowest on the hierarchy of controls. Okay, it's worn right next to the worker. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here, and why don't you eliminate the hazard? Bring back criminalization to illicit drug as an illicit drug use and possession, and then start a treatment plan, for goodness sakes, instead of putting staff at risk and saying, here, wear a mask. Let's move on. During question period on Wednesday, BC United MLA pointed to concerning cases on island hospitals where an infant was reportedly exposed to drug smoke and a nurse recently returned from maternity leave was exposed to fentanyl smoke and advised not to breastfeed her baby. Okay, so now babies, children, are the most innocent of all. So for goodness sakes, BC, look at this. Okay, look at how many people, like it's not just the emergency staff, like paramedics, firefighters, and police officers, but now we're talking about frontline hospital staff, but even hospital staff who are not necessarily in the emergency room setting. And now we're putting infants and patients and everybody else at risk? Dummy up. Island Health said Victoria General's maternity ward, where there have been instances of patients violating no smoking policies, which is why smoke detectors have been installed in perinatal units and other areas of the hospital. However, Island Health said they are battery-powered smoke detectors and not devices specific to drug particles. Okay? And that's how smoke detectors work. They basically notice particulate in the air. But some particulate isn't picked up, especially if it's not carbonized sufficiently. A nurse at the Royal Inland Hospital in Kamloops told Postmedia she was supervising her floor last month when a nursing colleague was exposed to illicit smoke, which exacerbated their asthma. The colleague filed a WorkSafe BC claim, said the nurse, but they did not want her name being used for fear of workplace repercussions. Okay, once again, full stop. in case anybody is unaware, it's actually against the law in Canada in the different provincial jurisdictions to counsel an employee against filing a workers' compensation claim or reacting to and adversely reacting and there being negative repercussions for them filing a claim or punitive actions punishing them for filing a claim. All of it is against the law. So hopefully that's not happening. There have been fires in hospital bathrooms from patients trying to hide their smoking materials. The nurse said she's got headaches from walking into the patient's room after they've smoked drugs in their room. That's awesome. And this is a quote from a nurse. I've been a nurse for 14 years and illicit drug use was just so-so. The illicit drug use is just so much more prevalent. Dr. Claudine Stornis-Bliss, co-head of obstetrics at Surrey Memorial Hospital, said, while she doesn't work in the emergency department, open drug use is a constant concern for doctors and nurses. Incidentally, the article goes on further to talk about that she's a BC United, so the opposite or opposing political party for the Surrey-Cloverdale riding. But she talks about there's bathroom ODs or overdoses in the emergency daily. When a nurse goes to the bathroom to help a patient, they run the risk of being exposed to drug smoke. Among anything else, too, does the patient have needles on them, hidden on them, weapons, etc.? Let's stop and think about that for a second. Stornis-Bliss said, well, health official authority policy is that patients are not allowed to smoke or openly use drugs in the hospital. What happens if they do? Well, then you call security. Security can't do anything. They can't remove them from their bed. They can't kick them out, and they can't take their drugs away. And it's the same for small weapons. Dix said the government has hired 230 security guards at healthcare sites across the province. I've managed security staff before, and I've worked in organizations where they have large contingents of security staff. I can't comment, but I do know the security under my supervision was told if anybody has a weapon or anything else like that, unless they voluntarily hand it over, or drugs, that you're not to touch them or do anything, you're supposed to call the police. As far as I know, that's a constant operating procedure. So once again, you have 230 people that are going to be expert witnesses. Good for you. Is that hazard mitigation? He said, and Dix went on, he disputed that decriminalization has had any impact on increasing drug use in hospitals. He said, this is not an issue of decrim. This is an issue of dealing with people in a healthcare environment with severe illnesses. Well, the numbers speak for themselves, and the WorkSafe BC wouldn't be coming in to do a visit on just a whim, okay, or an inspection on just a whim. So, yeah, full stop. Let's just finish up and talk about this. No matter what, employers in Canada and in a lot of different jurisdictions are required to provide that hazard-free workplace in for the workers to work in. They are to identify hazards, assess them for risk, and apply controls to such an extent that work can continue safely without the worker risking injury or harm. As I said before, I have a live stream that's happening Thursdays at 6:30 for the next few weeks talking about hazard assessment. You're free to join in. But my question is, I have two questions, maybe more. Number one, Adrian Dix, why don't you go and have a look and spend the day in some of these hospitals and have a look, not without security or contingent or anything else, just on your own, or maybe a nurse as an escort. Okay, do that before you speak up. The next thing is, I wonder, do you realize, Adrian Dix, that these workers have the right to refuse dangerous work? Okay? And that the employee can't say, well, we'll investigate it later. The employer can't say that. Work has to stop and it has to be investigated. Okay, so what are you going to do when staff start walking off because it's unsafe and they have the right to do so? Okay? Think about this long and hard. Anyway, and that's what leadership is when you get right down to it. It's doing the right thing in spite of opposition. And it's doing the right thing regardless of who's watching and who may object or who may say anything. It's doing that right thing. That's leadership, and that's safety leadership. You don't have to have a title or anything else like that. All you have to do is want to do that right thing. Okay? So provoke safety. Take care. Bye for now.